Hello. I'm so glad you're here. I just got a message from the platform that I'm going live on to please put in earbuds if there's any kind of echo. They're working on getting that resolved. So sorry about that if that's happening. So today we are talking about, this is a little thumbnail of an upcoming half-day class that I have called Tending the Caregiver and Using the Holidays to Heal Burnout. It is known that strong people pleasing and caregiving tendencies, folks that have those kinds of strategies, they are more likely to experience burnout. And maybe by the end of this presentation, that'll make a little more sense to you if it doesn't right now. What I find is also true is that folks who have strong caregiving tendencies are also, um, you know, they can not, well, I mean, part of what's going on with the caregiver, which we're going to talk more about, or people pleasing, is this disconnection from self to be in connection to other people. And so when it comes to things like burnout, that means that we're having a hard time tracking what's going on inside to accurately assess where we're at, what's going on, or if we need help. Excuse me. Excuse me, my nose itches. It's allergies time. Um, okay, so we have just a short period of time, so I'm going to jump right in. Um, so why would I be suggesting in an already stressful and overwhelming time to use the holidays to do some of our inner work? And it is exactly because of that reason, because for most of us, some degree of activation is going to come up that is a little uncanny, maybe for the rest of the year because of the holidays. And particularly, our attachment stuff tends to come up. And caregiving is something that shows up within the like attachment constellation. And so what I am proposing is that we go into this particular time of year as an opportunity. There's a quote by Ram Dass that I really love, and he says, everybody thinks they're enlightened until they go home for the holidays. So we could apply that, even to everybody thinks that they're doing great in their healing journey until they go home for the holidays. And others of us have different kinds of things that come up around the holidays that may have more to do with loneliness and things like that. Caregiving can show up in all of those places. So if we are looking at caregiving and or people pleasing, I want to just describe a little bit of what happens. It is a pattern or a strategy that starts really early in life. So it is a pattern or a strategy that comes up when there's a lot of different circumstances. So I'm not going to be able to talk about all of them. But when our caregivers are emotionally preoccupied or emotionally unavailable or have like unmet dependency needs, and they look for their kids to meet those are some ways that caregiving and people pleasing can develop when we're young. Sometimes it turns out that caregiving and people pleasing is around in order to help us be seen or to feel seen. It's a way to get some kind of attention, some kind of connection. So when the adults around us are unavailable when we're kids, that can be a way where we can have some kind of sense of connection. Now, that can even go a little bit further because then we may receive recognition or praise or be considered in our family system in a certain way, where we may have a sense of feeling a kind of importance. And that's also an important need when we're growing up to have met. when we're looking at caregiving and people pleasing, it doesn't just start as an adult, and it doesn't just start as a result of being a therapist. In fact, in my experience, many of the therapists that I work with and have worked with, and others, folks who I've talked to as well, lots of us who are therapists came from environments where we had to develop a really strong caregiver that we may or may not be aware of. And I feel like that's really important to say. On some level, you're here because you have some curiosity, at least, maybe if you're not totally aware of it, or maybe you are aware of it. And it's painful. I mean, the bottom line is that, the strategy or the pattern comes from a place where things aren't going well. And so that means that there's pain, that means that there's suffering, that means that there's developmental needs that aren't being met. Really, really important that we address this. And in particular for therapists, if it turns out that we are doing the work of being a therapist from our caregiving part, which does happen and happens more often than people want to believe, because that's a part of us that knows how to show up in those particular kinds of conditions. It's like a procedural memory. And if we are functioning as a therapist from that place, we're going to have a really hard time with boundaries. We're going to have a really hard time taking care of ourselves, being in touch with our own needs. And it's going to ultimately end up leading to burnout, whether or not you're aware that you're moving from your caregiver or people-pleasing self when you're in sessions. And it's also worth saying that it doesn't really have an on-off switch, like meaning you can toggle the caregiver on and off throughout the day. And ideally, what we're looking towards when we're doing healing work is to get to a place of being able to use the wisdom of a strategy consciously and at will, and to make other choices consciously and at will. So that's the place that we're moving to. And that being said, if you have a caregiving part that's coming up at work, it's certainly going to be coming up with your family, or vice versa, or with your friends, or in any other kind of situation. So what are some of the indicators that can let us know if we're in a caregiving part? One of the things that is really interesting about this particular part is it's generally considered to be part of a submit strategy. And what I have found is that there's not a whole lot of awareness for most folks who have caregiving and people-pleasing parts about the dysregulation associated with it. And the dysregulation associated with it, although it's, oftentimes connected with the submit part and in a hypoarousal, oftentimes comes with a big push of anxiety or hyperarousal. And that's because there are, attachment fears and freeze parts and other parts that can start working along with the caregiver, or get triggered by the caregiver as they're in the procedural memory from the past. Interestingly, a lot of us can function on top of that and not know that we are experiencing this dysregulation. So we may not really be aware of that aspect of it. Some of the things that are one of the big flags that people usually have is that they really want to say no to something, and then they end up saying yes. I don't want to work past 5 o'clock. And I said yes. I don't want to take that trip with my friend. And I said yes. And then we can get into all kinds of sophisticated justifications around that after the fact. And oftentimes when the yes comes out of who knows where, it seems like in those moments when we really mean no, is that we can feel confused, and we can get wrapped up into a very painful shame spiral that's really hard to get out of. So in my experience, that's the way most people recognize when the part is active. It can also show up, though, in passivity and numbness and accommodating kind of behaviors. The numb sort of feeling, the numb isn't necessarily a behavior, but the passivity and the accommodation, putting other people's needs before your own, not being able to circle back and see what you need before you make any kind of commitment to something that is being asked of you, or not even being asked of you, but some part of you might anticipate it and offers. It's so important that we recognize that all of this comes from what I was talking about at the beginning, is why I was talking about it, is that there is an unmet need that is trying to be met, and a kind of stuckness in time where it is not known that needs can be met in other ways now. So the bottom line is that it's a really painful pattern to be in. It's a complicated pattern to be in. We can't will ourselves out of it. We can't read a lot of books about it and then just sort of change our mind and say we're going to do things differently. It's much more complicated than that. The work that we need to do to help integrate and heal and resolve the wounds that are associated there is complex. So what we're stepping into in this little month and a half period of time where there's lots of hustle and bustle is the possibility that we can use this time to stay connected into ourselves and create the possibility for change and healing. And that's what the class on December 4th is about. If you would like to come, if you found this talk interesting, please share it. I want to get to as many, sorry about that. I want to be able to help out as many folks as possible. And I would love to see you there. There is a half off coupon, or I'm not sorry, the coupon code for the class on December 4th is half-day-50, which I will go ahead and put in the comments. I went ahead and posted the link to attend the class, and here is the coupon code if you feel like this would help you. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. Please message me if you have any questions. I know this is a really fast talk about a big, complicated issue. I hope it was helpful. Take good care and hope to see you soon. Bye.